One morning you wake up to your phone ringing. The caller isn't the manager of the fund where you've invested your life savings. It's an FBI agent. Their voice is cold, their words sharp. "We're sorry, but all your money is gone." Think about it for a moment. The money you saved by selling your house, your retirement fund, your children's education savings, perhaps the inheritance you dreamed of leaving to your grandchildren, all of it vanished into thin air in the hands of one man. This man wasn't ordinary. He was Wall Street's shining star, former chairman of NASDAQ. The man you saw on television, whose name was mentioned with respect in newspapers, whom even billionaires trusted. His name, Bernie Madoff. But the truly shocking part isn't just the loss of money. This story tells how trust became a weapon, how greed led to disaster, a father's betrayal of his sons, and how a family disintegrated before our eyes. If you want to see the darkest aspects of human nature, understand how trust can become a trap, don't leave this story unfinished. Because what you're about to hear will turn everything you know upside down. Young Bernie's eyes were always turned toward Manhattan. From the window of the modest house in Queens, he would look at the skyscrapers, dreaming that the lights would one day illuminate his own life. He often told his friends, "One day, I'll be a big man on Wall Street." During his years at Hofstra University, he started studying law but dropped out after a year. Law was too slow for him. He was looking for ways to get rich, quickly. Even during his time at university, he engaged in small trading businesses, buying wholesale goods from clothing stores and selling them to earn pocket money. In 1959, he married Ruth Alpern. This marriage was not only emotional, but also a financial partnership. Ruth's father, Saul Alpern, was a successful accountant with a strong client network in Queens. These connections were worth their weight in gold to Bernie. With $50,000 support from his father-in-law, he founded Bernard L. Madoff Investment Securities in 1960. The starting capital was $5,000, with the remaining money allocated for technology and office setup. His office was a small, two-room space on Wall Street, but his dreams were enormous. He spent all day on the phone trying to reach potential clients. He traded in penny stocks, cheap shares. His earnings were small, but Bernie was learning something else. To make money, you had to sell trust. The first years were tough. He went door to door looking for clients, trying to convince small investors. He would get up early in the morning and work until late in the evening. Even Ruth was amazed by her husband's determination. When he came home, he would look at Ruth and repeat the same sentence. "One day I'll be at the top of those skyscrapers." What's truly shocking here is that money was just a tool for him. What he really wanted was to be visible. The invisibility he experienced in childhood had turned into insatiable hunger in adulthood. In 1962, he won his first big client, Carl Shapiro. Shapiro, successful in the textile business, had been impressed by Bernie's confidence. This client opened doors that would change Bernie's life. By the 1970s, Wall Street was changing. Computers were beginning to enter trading floors. While most brokers were still dealing with papers, Bernie thought differently. He made major investments in electronic systems, taking innovative steps. His agreement with the Cincinnati Stock Exchange was the first major leap in his career. By establishing electronic trading systems, he created an alternative to the New York Stock Exchange and other major exchanges. This system was so successful that other brokers began using Madoff's system as well. This risk earned him a great reward. By the end of the 1970s, his name was known as a young, brilliant, and reliable broker. Investors preferred him because he was fast, modern, reliable. Bernie's investment in technology wasn't just financial. He could foresee how technology would change the financial world in the future. This vision put him ahead of his competitors. In the 1980s, his company became a major force. He made big profits through market making, acting as a bridge between buyers and sellers. Bernie's system worked so efficiently that even NYSE began buying services from him. He took on critical roles during NASDAQ's founding years. He became one of the important board members, serving on committees. In 1990, he sat in the chairman's seat. Now Bernie Madoff was not just a successful businessman, but a symbol of the system. During this period, his office expanded, the number of employees increased. It spread from the 19th floor to the 18th floor, then to the 17th floor. Each floor was equipped with a different function. The 19th and 18th floors were used for legitimate trading activities. The 17th floor would later hide Bernie's biggest secret. But right at that point, the void inside him spoke again. Success wasn't enough. Because Bernie didn't just want to be rich, he wanted to be untouchable. A fraud most often doesn't start with a big plan. Most begin with a small managing move. It was the same for Bernie. In the early 1980s, business was generally going well, but markets were volatile. Some days there were big losses. One day he experienced a major loss. Under normal circumstances, he could have explained this to his clients, talking about the difficulty of market conditions. But Bernie made a different decision. Instead of telling his clients the truth, he wrote fake numbers. He hid the losses in account statements, showing profit figures. He told himself, just this once. When I recover the situation, I'll fix everything. What would you have done? Would you have seen a small lie as a temporary remedy to prevent a big disaster, or as a door with no return? The first lie worked. His clients were satisfied, and they even brought new investors. Bernie also took courage from this situation. Maybe it's not such a big deal, he thought. But lies never stand alone. One lie gives birth to another. First he was deceiving just one client, then 5, then 10. Every passing day he spent more time preparing fake documents. By the mid-1980s, he had established a systematic fake trading network. He brought a trusted employee named Frank DiPascali into this business. DiPascali was someone who understood Bernie's vision and had the technical skills to realize it. They formed a small group on the 17th floor. This group looked like an accounting department from the outside, but in reality, it was producing fake documents. Client account statements, transaction reports, profit statements, all completely fake, but looking perfect. At this point, Bernie wasn't yet a major fraudster, but he had already passed the point of no return. By the mid-1990s, Bernie's fake system had become even more complex. Now, he needed to tell clients a consistent story. That's when the split strike conversion strategy was born. This strategy on paper was as follows. He bought the strongest stocks in the S&P 100 index. At the same time, he made option trades against these stocks to provide risk management. If the market rose, he profited from stocks. If it fell, he profited from options. Mathematically, it looked perfect. It was like a dream for investors. High return, low risk, stable performance. When Bernie explained this strategy, he was so convincing that even experienced financiers didn't question it. But the reality was completely different. No trades were made, no stocks were bought, no options were sold. Only fake documents were prepared. The 17th floor of the office had now turned into a complete fraud factory. Frank DiPascali and his loyal employees produced thousands of fake account statements, profit statements, and transaction documents every day. The software they used was so advanced that the documents they produced were indistinguishable from real bank documents. The point that showed Bernie's genius was this. He didn't determine fake numbers completely randomly. He followed real market data, calculated reasonable return rates, sometimes even showed small losses. This made his strategy more believable. But what was truly shocking was that these documents looked so normal that no one suspected anything. Because Bernie knew very well what people wanted to believe. The monthly reports sent to clients were detailed. Which stocks were bought, which options were sold, when entries and exits were made. Everything was written down. But none of it was real. Madoff's real success wasn't fake documents, but his ability to create trust. He was a true artist in this regard. Bernie was active not only on Wall Street, but also in social circles. He became a member of country clubs in Palm Beach, building friendships with the wealthiest families there. He would play golf, chat at dinners, slowly winning their trust. For many people, investing with Bernie wasn't just about profit. It was a status symbol. Because Bernie didn't accept everyone. Minimum investment amounts were high. He rejected some investors, which made him appear more attractive. Saying, "I invested my money with Bernie," was like a special ID card in society. People were lining up to be part of this privileged club. This is exactly where human psychology came into play. We all want to be inside a club. Bernie turned this feeling into a weapon. Bernie's biggest advantage was his position in the Jewish community. Being Jewish himself, Bernie skillfully used this community's trust networks. Elderly Holocaust survivors saw Bernie as one of us. Their trust led to their children and grandchildren entrusting their money to him as well. Carl Shapiro, the textile emperor and Bernie's first major client, invested $545 million with him. The Shapiro family saw Bernie almost like a family member. The Elie Wiesel Foundation, which collected $15 million to commemorate the pain of the Holocaust and support survivors, entrusted this money to Bernie. Nobel Prize winner Elie Wiesel trusted Bernie so much that he also gave him all his personal wealth. Hadassah, the women's organization and America's largest Jewish women's organization, gave Bernie the savings of thousands of members. This money had been collected for hospitals and educational institutions in Israel. Feeder funds like Fairfield Greenwich Group directed billions of dollars to Bernie. These funds didn't care whether they understood Bernie's strategy or not. What mattered was being able to promise stable returns to their clients. And Bernie turned their lives into fake papers. Moreover, Bernie's trust-building tactics weren't just psychological. He didn't show off to potential investors visiting his office. A simple, clean, professional environment. Piles of files on his desk, phones constantly ringing, the intensity of business. Everything gave the appearance of a real financial empire. Bernie's fraud created not only financial, but also emotionally horrific effects. People had lost not only their money, but also their faith in the future. Outside, Bernie was a hero, Wall Street's shining star. But at home, the situation was more complex. His sons Mark and Andrew began working on the legitimate side of the company in the late 1990s. Both had been educated in finance and were talented young men. They were proud of their father's success and tried to follow in his footsteps. However, over time, they began asking questions. Dad, how are these returns happening? Even when markets are falling, how are you making profits? Bernie's answer was always the same. Mind your own business. You do the trading. Investment advisory is my job. They were forbidden to go to the 17th floor. There are private clients, confidentiality is important, Bernie would say. His sons accepted this situation, but the doubt inside them was growing. Mark was particularly curious. One day he asked his father, "What's happening on the 17th floor? Why can't we go up there?" Bernie got angry. "How many times have I told you mind your own business? That floor is about confidential clients." Ruth Madoff questioned her husband staying alone on the 17th floor at night. Bernie's behavior was becoming increasingly tense and closed off. He didn't want to talk at home, constantly lost in thought. When she asked, "Bernie, are you okay?" her husband would reply, "Business is a bit complicated, but we'll handle it." But what was truly shocking was that Bernie continued to deceive even his family. Because as a lie grows, it has to be told even to those closest to you. In the early 2000s, Andrew and Mark became even more suspicious. Their father's investment results were mathematically close to impossible. No strategy could be this stable. Mark said to his brother one day, "Andrew, I don't want to think badly of our father, but..." "I'm thinking the same things," said Andrew. "But what if we're wrong?" These conversations continued for years. The sons were torn between suspecting their father and accusing him. They lived their love, trust, and suspicions about him all at once. The year 2008 destroyed not only the world economy, but also Bernie Madoff's empire of lies built over years. The financial earthquake that began with Lehman Brothers' collapse on September 15th. The sale of Bear Stearns. The explosion of the mortgage crisis. Everyone began pulling their money to safe havens. This was a financial tsunami, and no one was safe. The real problem for Bernie was his clients' simultaneous requests to withdraw money. In normal times, he met these requests with new incoming investments. But in 2008, no new money was coming in. Everyone was trying to withdraw. The first big requests came in October. Fairfield Greenwich Group wanted to withdraw $100 million. Another fund requested $200 million. Bernie didn't panic at first. He had met large withdrawal requests before. He could handle it with the cash on hand and new incoming money. But this time was different. Because the crisis was global, everyone wanted their money at the same time. In November, the requests grew. $500 million, $1 billion. Bernie desperately began searching for new investors. He was calling some old clients, trying to raise money by saying, "There's a new opportunity." By early December, Bernie faced $7 billion in cash requests. In his vault, there was only $200 to $300 million. Mathematics never forgives. Frank DePascali and the team on the 17th floor could no longer produce fake documents. Because whatever documents they produced, there was no money. Bernie couldn't sleep at night, running around during the day looking for solutions. But every passing day, the situation got worse. Things seemed to be getting better when Suddenly, the cards were reshuffled. This time, there was no escape. By mid-December, Bernie understood. The game was over. His 50-year career, his 20-year fraud, had come to an end. December 10th, 2008, Wednesday night. In a luxury apartment in Manhattan, Bernie Madoff was making the most difficult decision in his history. After Ruth went to sleep, Bernie called his sons Mark and Andrew. "Come to the office tomorrow morning. We have important things to discuss." Bernie couldn't sleep that night. Looking at Manhattan's lights from the apartment, he thought about the life he had lived. He was 70 years old and had to confess the biggest lie of his life. On the morning of December 11th, Mark and Andrew came to the office. There was an expression on their father's face they had never seen before. Fatigue, desperation, and shame. Bernie's voice was trembling. These words fell from his lips. "It's all a big lie." His sons didn't understand what he meant. Mark asked, "What's a lie, Dad?" "The investment advisory business. I never made any investments. I just paid old investors with new incoming money." Silence. Andrew's face turned pale. Mark began to cry. "How much?" asked Andrew, his voice trembling. Bernie lowered his head. $50 billion, maybe $65 billion. Anyone experiencing this moment would be breathless. Because at that moment, not only clients, but also his own children learned they had been deceived. Mark jumped up. Dad, what are you saying? This is impossible. Unfortunately, it's not. It's been like this for years. I can't take it anymore. Andrew asked from where he sat. What about our money? The family's money? That's gone too. Everything's gone. At that moment, Mark and Andrew's world collapsed. Not only clients, but they were also victims. Their father had deceived them too. The sons thought, argued, and cried until morning. Finally, they made their decision. They would report their father. Because there was no other way. They had to do this both legally and morally. On December 11th, 2008, early in the morning, Mark and Andrew went to the FBI with their lawyers. They reported their father. The same day at 8:30 a.m., Bernie's apartment door was knocked. FBI agents entered. Mr. Madoff, you're under arrest. Bernie didn't resist at all. As if he had been waiting for this moment, he calmly nodded. I knew this day would come. Wall Street was shocked when the news broke. The former chairman of NASDAQ, one of the most respected names, was a fraudster? Stock values fell. The media went crazy. Clients were panicking. The phones wouldn't stop ringing. Everyone was asking what happened to their money. But there was no answer to give. During Bernie's first court appearance, media and victims were waiting outside. Some were shouting, "Give me my money back." Others were crying. During the months-long legal process, the extent of Bernie's fraud was revealed. The SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission, had audited Bernie for years, but found nothing. This showed how inadequate the system was. On March 12, 2009, Bernie pleaded guilty. He admitted to 11 charges: securities fraud, investment advisor fraud, mail fraud, wire fraud, money laundering, false statements, perjury in sworn testimony, keeping false records. June 29, 2009. Sentencing hearing. The courtroom was packed. Victims spoke, one by one. Mr. Madoff, you stole my life. My husband had a heart attack and died because of you. I'm 80 years old, working to get back my retirement money. Bernie stood up. In a slow, quiet voice, he said, I know what I did was horrible. I apologize to my victims and their families. These words are not enough. I know. But there's nothing else I can say. Judge Denny Chin spoke the words that went down in history. Mr. Madoff's crimes are extraordinarily large. They affected countless people, violated trust, and damaged the financial system. And he sentenced him to 150 years in prison. Bernie was 71 years old at that moment. This sentence meant he would stay in prison for life. If you're questioning whether this is real, yes, a man had committed the biggest fraud in history by deceiving even his own children. But the real pain was experienced not in Bernie's prison, but in his family. While Bernie continued his life in Butner Federal Prison, his family was falling apart outside. Mark Madoff never found peace after reporting his father. He was hiding from the media, friends were turning their backs, his business life was over. The stigma of being Bernie Madoff's son followed him everywhere. His relationship with his wife Stephanie became tense. They didn't know what to tell their children. Mark gradually fell into depression. December 11th, 2010, exactly 2 years later, the anniversary of his father's arrest. Mark woke up early in the morning and prepared his children's gifts. Then he left a note to his wife. Being Bernie Madoff's son is an unbearable burden. I can't take it anymore. And he hanged himself. He was 46 years old. Bernie learned the news in prison. According to records, he didn't eat or speak for 3 days. The other son, Andrew, was even more devastated after his brother's death. He was already receiving cancer treatment, and this trauma made his condition even worse. Andrew never met with his father. He's no longer my father, he would say. He died of cancer in 2014. Before dying, he said in an interview, My father also stole our lives. He killed not only his clients, but also his own family. Ruth Madoff perhaps experienced the hardest thing: staying alive. She lost 2 sons, her husband was in prison, all her wealth had been taken away. She used to live in a luxury apartment in Manhattan. Now she was secretly living in a small apartment. Her friends turned their backs. Neighbors stopped greeting her. She would go to markets with a headscarf so she wouldn't be recognized. She was complicit in her husband's crime, some said. It's impossible that his wife of 50 years didn't know. But Ruth said in FBI interrogations that she knew nothing. And she had to be believed, because even Bernie confirmed that Ruth was unaware. Bernie Madoff died on April 14, 2021, at Butner Prison. He was 82 years old. In his final years, he suffered from kidney disease and used a wheelchair. In one of the rare interviews he gave before his death, he said, "I regret it every day." But regret doesn't bring anything back. Among Madoff's victims were billionaires, but at the same time, there were retirees, teachers, and charities. The total loss was calculated as $65 billion. Irving Picard, the trustee committee chairman, recovered $14.4 billion through years of lawsuits. 70% of the victims got back some of their money. But the remaining $50 billion remained as a loss. More importantly, the lost trust never returned. What Bernie did opened deep wounds, not only financially but also psychologically. The SEC renewed itself with reforms. Audit systems were strengthened. But critics say it's still inadequate. Bernie's name remains a symbol of greed, betrayal, of trust, the darkest face of human nature. Lessons that can be drawn from this story. 1. Opportunities that seem too good can be suspicious. 10 to 12% stable annual return. No losses ever. This is mathematically very difficult. 2. Trust shouldn't be blind. Even our closest friend can deceive us. Asking questions, requesting documents is normal. 3. Diversification is important. Putting all eggs in the same basket is dangerous. 4. Regulatory institutions can't always protect. The SEC audited Bernie for years but couldn't find anything. 5. We need to learn to suspect before it's too late. If you also love these mysterious stories, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Because in our next video, we'll again discuss trust, betrayal, and the deepest points of human psychology. They weren't the only ones in this situation. Because what Bernie did had torn apart not only his clients' lives, but also his own family's life. Bernie Madoff's story shows us this. A lie, no matter how big, eventually collapses. But the lives remaining in the wreckage of that lie are never the same again. This is not just financial fraud. This is the story of how humanity's most basic need, trust, can be turned into a weapon. The story of how one man stole thousands of people's dreams. How he destroyed his own family. Bernie Madoff had a successful career on Wall Street for 50 years. He invested in technology, modernized NASDAQ, provided jobs to thousands of people. But all these successes were overshadowed by his lies in the last 20 years. And perhaps the most painful question we should ask ourselves is, what truths do we ignore for the sake of trust? This story is not just Bernie Madoff's story. This is the story of the greed within all of us, our desire for trust, our wish to be special. Bernie used these weaknesses to carry out history's biggest fraud. Even today, Madoff-type frauds occur in the financial world. Because human nature doesn't change. We still want to believe in opportunities that seem too good. We still want to be part of the special club. Bernie Madoff's story reveals the power and danger of trust. Society cannot survive without trust, but blind trust is one of the greatest dangers. Therefore, Bernie Madoff's story is not just an event that remains in the past. It's a warning for the future.